Now we have X-bind directive. So the X-bind directives allow us to dynamically bind HTML attributes using Alpine state. By the end of this video, we will learn what X-bind is, why we use it, how to bind attributes dynamically, how to bind classes and style, and the shortcut syntax used by developers. What is X-bind? X-bind directives allow us to bind an HTML attribute to a piece of Alpine state. The syntax of writing X-bind is we use X-bind directive, then colon, then we need attribute and the expression like this. So this is how we write X-bind directive. Now let's create a state here in the X data directive. Let's create a state, let's say title, and initialize it to Alpine.js. So now what we are going to do is we are going to bind title attribute of an element to this state. So what we can do here is we can create p tag, and in the p tag I have, let's create hover over me text like this, and what we can do is we can create X bind here and bind title and add the title state here. So if you find it confusing, we can change the state name to, let's say, message like this. Okay, let me copy this and paste that here. If we hit save now, if we hover over this, you can see we have Alpine.js title here. So this title is an HTML attribute and this message is Alpine state. When the message changes, the title automatically updates. Now, if you hover over the paragraph, we will see the tooltip is showing the title Alpine.js. Now we have a shortcut to write this Alpine.js. So we can omit X-bind and simply use colon title here like this. So this will works exactly the same. So this is how we can write X-bind in a shortcut way. We can bind any state to any attribute. Let's take an example of how we can bind href of anchor tag. So here in this code, I have a state, let's say link, and I have a value here. We can bind this state to this href using colon href and pass the state here. Now if we save this, you will see if we click here, this will take us to the link that we have in the state, this one. One of the powerful feature of X-bind is conditional attributes. So we can bind attributes based on some condition. Let me add some code here. You can see we have X data directive here and we have a state disabled and we have made it and the value is true. Now we can bind this disabled attribute to this state. Now if we save this, you can see, now if we save this and inspect this, you can see we have this disabled property disabled here. Now if we make it false, you can see now we have this active button here. One of the most common uses of X-bind directive is dynamic classes. We can bind classes based on some condition. So let's check that. Let's create a div and add a state here using X data directive, and the state that we are going to create is, let's say, active, and initialize this to false like this. Now here I'm going to add a button, let's say toggle classes, toggle class. Here, let me add some classes. Let's say P2 and rounded SM. Now what we can do here is we can bind some classes using colon class, and here we can add a condition. If our state active is true, then we are going to add, let's say bg red 600 and add text white. So if our active state is true, then we are going to add these two classes, and if not, then we are going to add, let's say bg gray 300. Let's hit save. So let me fix the spelling here. We need to use active. You can see currently our active state is false. Here it checks the condition. So if the active state is true, then these classes should be added to the button. If the condition is false, which means active state is false, then this class should be added. So you can see we have currently we have active state false, so this class is added here. Now if we change this to true, you can see, so these two classes are added here in this button. We can also add a click event which toggles the state, this active states, to true or false. Now if we hit save, now you can see we can toggle the classes based on a condition. Xbind can also be used to bind inline style. So let's check how. Let's create a div. I'm going to create a state using X data. So the state I'm going to use is, let's say, a size. Let's make it 20 for now. And here in this div, I'm going to create p tag and add, let's say, dynamic font size. And for the p tag, we can bind style. And to add style, we need to use curly braces like this. And here we can add font size. So when we are using CSS properties, we use this syntax, font size. So we don't use this format. We use this font size. So this is how we use CSS in JavaScript. So font size. So then we have size property. We need to add this pixel here. So now if I save this, you can see we have this font size 20 here. Now if you change this size to 40, you can see our dynamic style is added to this p tag. So now why this Xbind is useful? So without Alpine, dynamic attributes require a manual JavaScript. Let's say if you are using vanilla JavaScript, then we need to write this one, button class list add active or remove active. With Alpine, this reduced to this one, this class active. So here you can see this reduces the code and keep logic close to the markup. Let's create a small project. We are going to create tabs. So when we click on Shopify button, so this will be visible. If we click on Laravel, only Laravel div will be visible. And if we click on this WordPress button, this WordPress div would be visible. So let's create that functionality. So I have this HTML. This is pretty simple HTML. I have 3 buttons and styled using CSS. And then I have these 3 divs that contains information related to WordPress, Shopify, and Laravel. Now what we need here is we need 2 states. So first state that we are going to use is show tab, and let's give this a default value, Shopify. Then we need, let's say, active class. Let's add, let's say, bg gray 500 and text white. Now the idea is when I click on this Shopify button, this tab will become active and Shopify div will be visible. if I click on Laravel, this will become active, and this BG Gray 500 and text white classes will be added here. And these classes will be removed from this Shopify button. If I click on WordPress, this will be active button. First of all, let's add states here. So this is Shopify div. This div will be visible only if a show tab value is Shopify. So this would be pretty simple. We can add x show. So this will be only visible if show tab. So this state will be equal to Shopify, like this. We can add the same logic here. Let me copy this and paste that here. So this will be visible if show tab value will be equal to Laravel, and the same would be here if show tab value is, let's say, WordPress. Okay, now the default value of show tab is Shopify. Only this should be visible. So here we have some issue. We are not assigning, actually we are adding a condition here, so we can use this double equal to or triple equal to. Let me add that here also, and we can do the same here. Now if we save this, you can see only the Shopify div is available because the show tab has default value Shopify. Now we can add the click events here on our buttons. When we add click event here, the show tab value will be Shopify. So we can do the same here. Show tab will be Laravel, and the same with the WordPress div. The show tab would be WordPress. Let me save this, and now you can see our tabs are working. Now we need to add these BG Gray and text white classes to the active tab, this active button. So for that, we can use bind class. So let's do that. X bind, we can bind class and add. So if show tab is equal to, let's say, Shopify, then we can add our active class here like this. Otherwise, we can make it empty. Let me save this. You can see our condition is working. Whenever we have this show tab value equal to Shopify, these active class state will be added here. So this active class state contains these two classes. So whenever we click here, you can see this active class will be removed from the Shopify, and it should be added here. Now what we can do here is we can simplify this code. So instead of this question mark, we can add and operator here, and we can remove this part here. Now if we click here, you can see the functionality is the same. So this is the simplified version of the code that we used previously. Now let me copy this piece of code and paste that here. The only thing that we need to change here is the state. Let's say Laravel, and we can do the same here. Show tab, WordPress, and we can add active class here. Let me hit save. Now you can see we have our tabs working.